Somebody said there were 70,000 people here.
Innovators, indigenous leaders, youth, fashion, food, negotiators.
So that means there are 70,000 people that cared enough about climate change to come here.
Let's keep the drive for 1.5 alive.
Our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do.
Ultimately, we all want to see action. Not words, action.
My message to this COP is that we don't have more time.
Action is what must underpin this COP.
The biggest reason to bring the business community together is that everybody has a different perspective. There are people who are developing new technologies, people who are finance, people who are communicators. And it's by bringing everybody together that we'll be able to solve the big problems, right? And climate change is a big problem.
We cannot do anything without collaboration. And it was fantastic this morning hearing from Pepsi that on the issue of water, Pepsi and Coke collaborate.
Collaboration is essential. I always say this whole climate change, sustainability, it's a team sport.
If that kind of collaboration happens between two of the toughest competitors in the world, we should all be able to collaborate. We can't just talk anymore. It's time to get the doing done.
The energy transition is not an easy thing to do. If it was, we would have already done it.
I know in climate it's easy and necessary to look at the depressing side of the charts. But if you look at how fast now wind energy, solar energy, batteries, electric vehicles are beginning to pick up in all markets in the world, that's called exponential growth curves. That's where the hope is.
We're hoping that business will help us to deliver the 100 billion that we committed to in 2009. We're hoping that business will be the generator to enable that 4 trillion to be produced, because we know at the moment we only have 630 billion.
Financing the infrastructure that needs to be built over the next 10, 20, 30 years is huge. It's a huge financing requirement. That can only be done with the public and private sector working together. That's absolutely essential if we're going to hit net zero by 2050.
I also want us to concentrate on the small and the developing countries in the global south in particular, who have made virtually no contribution to this climate crisis, but are disproportionately impacted by it.
I don't believe for even a second that there is not enough climate finance in this world. The problem is it's locked in somewhere.
Finance is critical if you are really living on the front line of climate change. But there's actually a really big job for financial institutions to do to kind of crack open their investments and their assets to try and understand what is that doing, either for good, for green, if you like, and for a healthy, sustainable economy, or actually is perpetrating so much damage that we are seeing of our planet's resources.
The entire global economy is fundamentally embedded within and dependent upon nature.
From a First Nations worldview, indigenous worldview, we're part of nature. We don't own nature. You can't own Mother Earth.
Through our arrogance and our misguidedness, we've seen ourselves as separate from nature. What we do to nature, we do to ourselves.
It's really nice to see that climate and nature are now being spoken about in the same conversation. They're really two sides of the same coin.
In our territories, we don't decide, we'll govern our lands and waters on Monday to address climate change, on Tuesday to address desertification, and on Wednesday to address biodiversity loss. It's all integrated for Indigenous peoples. So we hope that they take inspiration from Indigenous peoples and look at all of these things in an integrated way.
I've always said you got to get Indigenous peoples around decision-making tables. Any private sector company that has Indigenous peoples is going to be proactive enough that they're going to be out ahead of the game. Like, they're going to be long-term sustainable business development operations in a more effective and efficient manner. And that's key.
Over the last year, we've had a number of firsts. We've had the first
liquid hydrogen powered flight, fuel cell, with H2 Fly in Germany. We've had ZeroAvia doing their first flight with a fuel cell hydrogen aircraft. We've had Rolls-Royce running the first hydrogen jet engines and combustion systems. And that's all accelerating the delivery of hydrogen flight.
I think for me, for this industry, it's a clear plan, a committed plan to get to net zero for aviation by 2050 with all the parts in place, not just what we do within the engine sector, but the fuel sector, the energy sector. It's that holistic plan that we need.
While there's been tremendous progress, we need to go faster to get to scale. I think a lot of people are growing impatient that sustainable aviation fuel will never emerge. But if you look at how many planes are currently flying on some amount of sustainable aviation fuel, you can start to see we're approaching that exponential part of the curve. We're going to get there.
We have to redesign everything. You know, you're not going to halve your footprint whilst continuing to grow unless you do some pretty major stuff. Our encouragement is, you know, let's all get on and do this because it's perfectly possible, perfectly affordable.
I am hopeful that the younger generation, which appreciates the problem better than we did when we were their age, is committed and doing everything they can.
I'm the founder and CEO of P&W Innovations, and I'm 14 years old. So one of the innovations that I've created, it's an inspection robot that's meant to inspect water systems and water bodies such as lakes, rivers, oceans, sewage systems, as well as clean water pipes. I'd say just listen to the youth, because the youth have some really great ideas, and the future is for the youth.
I'm an optimist. I always have been. You gotta be.
At last, we have all the actors in the same room.
There's still time. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
The risks are becoming clearer and clearer to everybody.
Climate change is coming home. It really does seem like everyone's starting to wake up. Just need those eyes to open as soon as possible.
Who was talking about renewables as we are 10, 20 years ago? So things change.
It gives us hope that there are many more people willing to listen to indigenous peoples.
You always try to leave more hope in that room or in that conference than when you walked in.
Extraordinary atmosphere of cultural harmony here.
Never deprive people of hope, because sometimes that may be all you have left.